You are tuned into Mostly Humans. The opinions and views shared by the hosts of this podcast are uniquely their own and do not reflect the view or opinions of the companies they work for. P.S. Don't sue or fire us. Thanks so much. Now let's get into the episode.
Wow, okay. I like this. I'm a big blurt guy. I like to blurt a lot of things. So if something could take my blurts, which I feel like I have profound blurts, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
There are profound blurts with you, yes.
But I need somebody to censor them, punctuation them, professionalize them.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Mostly Humans. I am one of your hosts, Justin Wright. I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Bigelow. Matt, how was your New Year's?
New Year's was great. I was sleeping by around 9.
Excellent.
So that was good. How was your whole holiday experience? I haven't talked to you since Santa came, the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, it was great. No, the Christmas was good with the fam. My daughter's almost old enough to know what's going on. She liked unwrapping things, so that was fun to see. It's nice because I know you understand this, having, been in several sales roles. The end of year period is nice because nobody's buying anything after, once the holidays start. And so all the chaos kind of slows down a little bit. And it's actually nice to be able to take a breather and step back. So I enjoyed that time.
You think I know. See, you think I know what that is like, but I don't. Because everywhere that I have worked has been on calendar end of year versus staggering by 1 month. Staggering by 1 month is amazing. So instead, when everyone's winding down and no one can be contacted and everyone's on PTO, I'm busy chasing people around with order forms and DocuSigns. Be like, can you please? I know this is the worst time ever. And for the double whammy, my birthday, June 26th. So that's the tail end of calendar year Q2. So my birthday and the holiday season is always the time of year I like the least professionally. However, at my new startup, I will die on the hill of trying to give us that 1 month stagger like you have, because your quarter ends what, January? Lucky. Never experienced it in my whole life.
I will say also that I sympathize with the order form chasing, but that is definitely 100% not my job. So if the things I'm responsible for aren't done before the order form chasing, I have bigger problems.
Fair enough. So what's been going on in your world AI-wise?
A lot of things. One tool that I am very late to the party on discovering that I have to shout to the mountaintops right now is Whisperflow, which I started using because I can type pretty fast, but my brain was stumbling over my typing or whatever. And Whisperflow, you dictate on any platform and it's AI powered. So it formats things nicely. It understands punctuation. It's like everything that iPhone dictation should be. And I started using that on some of my coding workflows and stuff. And I'm literally just talking to my computer and it's mind blowing. So there's free trials. They also have aggressive usage limits in the sense that you can use it a good amount without having to subscribe to plans or whatever. So for anybody who doesn't like typing or wants to improve their workflows a little bit, Whisperflow, great AI tool. I am not sponsored or affiliated, but if they want to sponsor the podcast, by all means, feel free. But late to the party on that one, and I wish I had started using it sooner.
I think I might have seen Ellie Miller post about it once or twice before. So I use dictation a lot. On my Mac, I had a shortcut set up. If I press the command key twice, I could start speaking into it. But you said it does formatting and it's just better in general. So tell me why I should use it, because I want to try it now. But what's different between that and using dictation in a text box?
For sure. I think dictation is pretty good in a lot of ways, but I think just the formatting and the understanding of language is still not quite there with some of the older tools. And so the cool thing about Whisperflow is it does a much better job of understanding the cadence of human speech, like actual language, where punctuation should be. It can also format what you're saying to be slightly more formal. So it can also kind of like edit as you go for you versus just whatever you happen to blurt out. And so I found it to be very accurate in terms of like, you can respond to an email. You can say, I need to get things from the store, and you start listing things off, and it's smart enough to know that it should create an actual list of things. So just little nuances like that you don't realize are kind of annoying to deal with traditionally. It does a really good job with.
Wow. Okay. I like this. I'm a big blurt guy. I like to blurt a lot of things. So if something could take my blurts, which I feel like I have profound blurts, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
There are
But
profound words with you. Yes.
but I need somebody to censor them, punctuation them, professionalize them. That is awesome. Well, since we're giving shout outs to tools, I saw you liked my LinkedIn post yesterday. But for those who haven't seen it, there's a company called Bevel, a health and fitness app whose competitor, Athletic, I used to prefer a lot. I thought they were doing better. And I just decided to see what's going on with Bevel lately. And I saw that they announced that everything is now free except for the AI. I was like, what a bold strategy. So I went into the app to see, and my goodness, what a phenomenal deployment of AI. Like conversational layer with everything. It's not like they have a knowledge base off to the side about Bevel and you can ask a little chat widget. It deeply understands everything that's on the page. So you can have a conversation with your data that's on the page. The charts and graphs are there the way they've always been, because we have to infer what the chart and graph means about our resting heart rate or how well we've slept or whatever. It's still all there, but the conversational layer can talk to you about everything that's on the UI, take some agentic action too, like actually move or click some buttons or save some things, and or let you talk about what does this chart even mean, right? It is a phenomenal deployment of AI. So shout out to Bevel. I will try Whisper. I'm really excited about where technology is going. Like there's a lot of really great things that are coming out lately. And I think the benchmark just went up for a lot of the enterprise companies. Like last half of 2025, these large enterprises that are like, oh, we're doing stuff with AI. And it's like very, very basic. It's like, you really got to step up.
Yeah, you got to get on the train. I think that there are a lot of applications now that have solved very common annoyances with traditional software. Like AI has created this layer of application where these scrappy companies that are solving very real pain points and annoying aspects of other software that make it way better to use. On the fitness front, I mean, Whoop, a Boston company, their AI team in-house is really incredible. And one of the cool things about their app is that you can talk to your workout data and exercise data and get suggestions, and it's very deeply integrated. And I think that we're going to start to see the successful AI deployments move more and more in that direction for sure, which segues kind of nicely to what we're talking about this week, which is, I don't know what we want to call it. We got to come up with one of your cool names of these like proactive agents or agents that are monitoring systems to and actually take action, because we've talked about how you can spin up agents. You can give them instructions, you can chat with it and say, hey, go do XYZ for me. But there's this whole other subset of agentic work, which I would argue is way more useful, which is agents that are kind of ready and waiting to then do things on behalf of the user based on the instructions that they've been given. So you don't have to chat with a bot and tell it to do something. And I know that this is something you're building a lot now, and I'd love to hear maybe your take on some of the differences between this like chatbot type of interaction versus like an agent that is monitoring a system and actually waiting to do things or take action on your behalf.
Yeah. Well, we all know, if you listen to this podcast, I'm big on a nice run-on sentence feature name.
Of course.
Lots of hyphens, lack of punctuation, some M dashes, just to make it feel like it's really AI speaking to you. I actually have, I think, a half decent name for this episode. Always on AI.
Ooh, that's catchy. Right? That's
because
way better than your normal names.
It's almost like we should rename Mostly Humans podcast Always on AI. That just sounds cool. But we're not doing that in case people stop saying AI one day. We still want our name to have multi-purpose usability. But it really is, what we're talking about really is always on AI. So we're not going to go technical, even though it could be fun to go technical on this podcast. But we're not going to do that for our listeners. Most of you are definitely using Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, Grok, Meta, and you're asking it things. That is ad hoc, on demand, if you will, form of AI. Now, if you have connected any of your AI to your own tools, and if you haven't, please do. It's amazing. Connect your calendar, connect your HubSpot, connect your Salesforce, connect your email. They all have these integrations now via MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. Do that. It's awesome. And if it starts to work with your data, that is technically agentic. Agentic, the loose definition is, can it do things in other systems that a human would normally have to click and do? So that's cool. But that would be ad hoc, on-demand agentic. Always on, if you will, agents would be the idea that there's an agent that listens for things happening in systems and then takes action. And I think it's important for our listeners to understand the differentiation between the two and understand that it is possible to do either one. So hopefully they've done the first. But on the second front, let's use email as a basic example. You could build an AI agent that listens to all of your emails that come in, and you could have it take actions based off of certain types of emails. And this is where your classic old school like workflow builders kind of come together with agentic. So I'll use OpenAI's Agent Kit as an example, or a bunch of other systems out there that let you do click and drag rule builders. You could build something that says, listen to Gmail, and you can type in your Gmail, give it the authority to read and write and all that kind of stuff, and say, listen to my Gmail. Now in there, you would then have to build a rule that says, if subject contains, or if subject has any of these types of topics, like someone trying to sell me something. So at any one time someone says offer, then I want you to use LLM to read it, understand it, and reply with a no thank you, please remove me from your list, and send it automatically. The first step there is very old school deterministic listening for software. And then the second steps are where the AI magic comes to life. You can read through it. It's not rigid. You're not building tight rules. You're saying, if it at all feels like a sales email, reply back to them, and whatever way I can unsubscribe from this email, have them remove me from my list, go ahead and do it. Why would you want to build something like that? Because maybe you don't want to have rigid filters to block stuff because maybe something came through that you actually liked. So instead, it's reading it, it's sending the reply of, hey, please remove me from your list, etc. And if it was really something important, like a client, you don't miss it. That's like a cool little example of how you could trigger a workflow, which is what the term that people use. It's called triggers, right? And there's so many applications of this that pretty much any system that you all use has the ability to be used as a trigger to get something agentic done.
This is interesting because there are ways to do some of this stuff that already exist, but they're a lot less efficient than what we have the capability to do now, right? But there are things called webhooks that have existed for a long time. And you can think of webhooks as almost like reverse APIs. So we've talked about in the MCP episode how an API is essentially an access point to another system. And a lot of these agents can leverage APIs to do stuff. That's how oftentimes they're able to take action on your behalf. And essentially what a webhook is it's similar to an API endpoint, but it's sending messages out. And so that could be like a webhook could be sent anytime an email hits your inbox. And so systems can listen to that and do things. And that's how a lot of these kind of previous gen automations were built. And we've tried to build things like spam filters with traditional machine learning models. And machine learning is basically like you come up with the result that you want. In this case, I want to filter out spam. And you essentially have the computer teach itself what spam means. So you give it some parameters, you let it run, you look at the results, you tweak it a little bit, you run it again, and so on and so forth. But the benefit of now being able to leverage these large language models is they have a much deeper understanding of context and language and nuance, which when you're talking about spam filters in the case of, well, you don't want a customer email to get an angry auto reply from you because that might cause problems, right? Is now you can leverage this enhanced reasoning capability that these frontier models have, combined with some of the things that work from this previous generation of software, which very much still exists. And this is where really cool stuff starts to happen because you can kick off all of these work streams and have things basically operate in the background where you don't have to be constantly monitoring it 24/7 or typing messages to kick things off. I think that email example is really cool. And there are so many other examples of things that you can do with these type of workflows.
100%. So let's talk about some of those, right? So here's a consumer one, a price drop alert. Now, again, this episode, I'm not encouraging to go build these things, although you absolutely can, but just to help you understand what's possible, because this can apply to vendors that you're evaluating for your company, for features that your company might want to roll out if you work in software, or solutions that you might want to pursue getting a consultant to come into for your business, right? So a price drop alert. If you were able to listen for when a price drop happens on a certain item, The agent can then check the specifics of the deals and then go use like a Perplexity to go compare alternatives and then notify you on email or Slack or SMS about, hey, there was a price drop alert here. And then I went and actually compared it to this, and this. And it actually looks like this is probably the best deal. That's one example. How about a calendar invite? You could build an agent that listens for every time you get a calendar invite. And then the agent can go do a web search on the attendees and prepare briefing notes. You could also build a simple rule with your agent to say, if the attendees check our CRM and if the attendees are related to a deal, give me briefing notes, not only on the latest things that these people have posted on LinkedIn, but also any of the specifics on as far as the activity goes in our CRM. Now, I understand that everyone who's listening to this probably says, I want both of those. I want all of those right now, but I don't want to go build those myself right now. And if you do, it's really not that hard. But if you don't, it's just important that you are aware of this concept. We haven't explicitly talked about this before, but it is great for you to know that this all exists. And as Justin mentioned, the listening, if you will, isn't new. Sending webhooks or different forms of creating triggers. Basically, every time an event happens inside of any kind of software or something called a log, if I press save somewhere, anywhere, or press send, there's a log that Matt at 2:23 and 30 seconds on January 2nd sent this email, and there's a log of that. And that log happens in the database. That can also be sent to other places. That's always existed. But what's interesting for you all to realize is you would never want to build a lot of the automations that we're talking about based off of that log or event happening, because it would just be too hard afterwards. Now with an agent kit, and what's that famous agent builder that everybody talks about?
N8N is a big one.
Yes, sorry. Shame on me for not remembering that. But with them, for example, like you could say, very deterministic, hey, listen to this thing for these logs or this event. But then the next part is where the AI fun comes in. You could say, but then I want you to do this, this, and this with it. And you can write in natural language and tell it to use that tool, and it will reason and think through. And that's where it has this big catch-all, maybe not catch-all, but catch most for what you're generally trying to do using the large language model. And it opens up a lot of doors. And I think probably everyone that is listening to this that works for a corporation has people who are technical, who are playing with LLMs inside of the business. You and I deal with this every day. Every time we're trying to sell your solution or mine or anyone else who sells AI solutions, like, oh, we have somebody doing some of that internally, like whatever. Like there's a time and a place for those things. Some things you want to build, some things you want to buy. But in general, every corporation has people who are experimenting with AI because it is so fundamentally a game changer. Most companies are like, who's the smartest person at our company? Give them a bunch of money to go play with AI. Maybe we'll build stuff, maybe we'll buy stuff, but I want them playing with this tech, right? You have those people at your company. Sometimes it's IT people, sometimes it's information systems, sometimes it's product or engineering, but they exist. So start thinking about the problems that you can solve at your company. If you now understand that AI can listen for logs happening in places. You could work for a law firm. I don't know much about the legal profession, but I'm sure you use a lot of digital systems. And I'm sure when something happens in a log here, it would be really cool if something got enriched and then went and looked up this local law in this local municipality and did this, this, and this, and then sent a brief to the person who manages the client's relationship, but doesn't actually do the legal homework. There's probably someone technical at your company playing around with N8N right now that you should be talking to see if they can build this for you. And it's our hope that sharing this with you helps you look good internally. Whether you're going to build it yourself or you're going to ask someone for assistance, know that anything that is saved somewhere can kick one of these agentic things off. So start thinking about how is that going to change your job? One, because it can change all of our jobs a lot. But two, if you want to look awesome at work, start mapping out how you could build some of these things at work or suggest that someone build them to make the whole company run more efficiently.
Yeah. I think some people struggle to figure out where AI could fit into their lives. They're like, I know this stuff is really cool. I know that everybody's telling me to use it, but I don't really know where I would use it or how I would use it. Take a step back and think about every task that you have to do. And in this case, think about what do you have to do when a meeting is over, for example? Well, we have to look at the meeting notes. Maybe there's some action items, so I have to send some calendar invites for a follow-up. I have to create a task in our system so that, Sally from HR sends this document and somebody from engineering sends this document, and then we're collaborating on this whole thing. even just something as simple as a standard internal meeting probably has several follow-up tasks that are kicked off from that meeting concluding. It's like, okay, well, there's a bunch of meeting note transcribing tools now that are built into anything that you're probably using. You can take the meeting notes, you can pull out these action items. And that's where a lot of this stuff stops right now. Like even these transcription things will give you some bullets or some follow-ups, but it's just another document that you have to look at. Well, what if you could take that transcription, take those follow-ups, and now you have this agentic workflow that actually books the next meeting, that actually reaches out to those people or creates a work ticket for this thing. And so those are the type of scenarios that we want you all to think about is what are the annoying aspects of your job that you have to do because of something else that happens? And with these MCP tools, you now don't need to know the exact specific API to hit to book the follow-up meeting or to create the task. If these systems are connected, which more and more of them are now, and random side note, Anthropic basically donated MCP to the Linux Foundation. So now it's like one of those things where this is going to be a publicly maintained standard for agent communication. So everything is going to get MCP. It's just one of those things. If it's a major product, they are going to build MCP capabilities into their product. And so that gives you a lot more flexibility where you don't need to have an engineering degree. You don't need to, sort through API documents for this system because they're going to expose all of that to these AI tools. And now you can basically describe the workflow that you want. Even something like N8N, you can talk to Claude and have it build a workflow in N8N for you. Like people do this in Claude Code a lot, which now has a web version. So you don't even have to open up a coding terminal or feel like you're in the Matrix. You can literally just pop into your web browser and use these tools, and they can actually build a lot of these workflows for you, and then you can go in and review. So just like anything else with AI, if you can clearly describe or even just brainstorm the thing that you want to build or connect to, now chances are by typing into the box, you can actually build these workflows with tools that already exist, and you don't have to know under the hood how it works or the engineering behind it. You just need to be able to clearly articulate what it is that you want.
So I'm really happy that you said that because it is getting simpler and simpler by the day. All I wanted coming out of today's episode was just that all of our listeners are aware that this is possible. I don't think we ever really deliberately told people, hey, tools can listen to stuff. And when stuff happens, AI can then take action for you. And it's really neat. And I want everyone to know that. And I think truly like 70% of the listeners of this podcast are now better off because they maybe didn't totally recognize that. And now they're going to seem smarter in their next meeting, or they're going to go build something interesting for their company. But you made such an awesome point, which is because MCP is the standard now, it really is crazy easy. If you wanted to listen to a thing, that's probably still the hardest part about the setup now. And if you wanted to go have something listen, just go sign up for Make or go sign up for Zapier. It's free. You guys can go to either one and just connect your Gmail. And then from there, you would think the hard part is once it reads the email going in, like let's say updating Salesforce or updating HubSpot, you would think that's where it's hard because you're like, oh, well, I got to know the tool names. It's actually not that way with MCP. You could say use Salesforce and update the opportunity. And if the MCP connection has been created well by Salesforce, it's on them, of course, we should be able to just talk to it. Obviously, you connect your Salesforce by logging in using OAuth, and then boom, it'll just do it. It might use 6 tools. It might use 7 tools, but it should know which tools to use because MCP says, hi, I'm Salesforce. I have this big toolbox and it looks like we're connected. So we're allowed to work with each other. And here's a description of each one of the tools in my toolbox. So, pick the right one for the job. And hopefully it picks the right 7 if it needed 7 and goes and does the update. So it is so close. So if you guys are hearing this and you're excited, and even though it seems like I'm persuading you not to build, Justin's right. Like you give it a shot if you want. Start in Zapier and hook up your Gmail and just have it listen and have it do one thing, like create a reply, but set it to draft. So it doesn't actually send the reply. You will feel like an engineer when you see it work and you'll get a big grin on your face. And then you start to realize, oh my God, like once you have that like one endorphin rush from building something agentic, I don't know why, but that's when belief happens. You and I can talk about it all day, but when someone actually builds something kind of agentic themselves, all of a sudden this like belief happens, and now they can brainstorm 30 more examples of what they could probably do to make themselves look like a star at work.
Yeah. The way that I like to think about MCP and agent work also, because these terms do get thrown around a lot. People in the media talk about this like it's this really complex thing. And I want to delineate usage from creation. So the engineering work that went into building agents and MCP is very in-depth and very difficult. And there are some incredibly intelligent engineers and developers who built this technology. But part of the beauty of it is they built it with the goal being for the end user to be able to leverage this stuff. And especially for MCP, they tried to and succeeded at building a universal communication language for AI tools. And so in order to do that, the engineering work that went into building it was really complex, but the end result is that it's very usable because it has to be, right? Because you want to be able to communicate with this wide range of systems. And so actually using the tools is in a completely different difficulty bucket than the people who built them. And I think sometimes people conflate the two things. And the way that I think about MCP and agents is if you have ever delegated a task to anyone in your career or your life, let's say a stay-at-home parent and you've been taking care of your household for many years, which I would also argue is probably a much harder job than some of the things that I do because I see my wife do it and it's chaos. But in that situation, you are delegating tasks to other people, whether you're giving the kids chores, whether you're coordinating billing payments across different systems, right? So there's people you have to communicate with, you give them instructions, things happen. That's essentially what you're doing with MCP. Because they're called actual tools and your toolbox example, let's say that you are working with a contractor. The reason you work with a general contractor is the contractor coordinates with all of the individual laborers and people to build the house or build the thing or fix whatever needs to be fixed, right? And so you're essentially using an AI tool like ChatGPT or whatever to act as your general contractor. And it's able to use MCP to get the plumber to install the pipes. And the plumber knows how to install the pipes because he has tools to do so. And then the electrician knows how to wire the electricity in the house because he has knowledge and specialized tools to wire the electricity. So in this case, whatever LLM or model that you're using, it becomes the general contractor, and MCP allows it to hire all of the specialized workers that you need to complete the task that you have given it to complete. And just like if you hire a contractor to build something, I don't want to know what they're doing or what they know or why they know what they know. I just want to make sure that the job gets done, it gets done well, and that I can verify the results at the end. And that's essentially what your role is in this process as a human when you're leveraging these AI agents and MCP, especially when you're talking about these proactive workflows. You're just watching and validating, but you don't need to know how Google's backend API works to pull an email. Like none of those details need to matter to you. And MCP is what allows you to kind of take that perspective now and not worry about the technical details.
And if you are still afraid of giving this stuff a try, at least just know about it and talk about it at work. And we all do that thing every day. And I feel like we all press a save button and there's probably a log somewhere that could trigger a workflow. And we all have to do the same thing at that point. What is that thing? And go pursue some way to turn that into an agent internally, or at least talk about it to somebody so you seem like a proactive person who's staying on top of what's going on in the world, because the world is shifting beneath our feet. Now, I'm not a big Star Trek fan, but I'm going to go on a bit of an analogy here. I definitely saw a Star Trek movie back in the day. And I know that like a big thing that people say in jest is like, computer, what's the status of the engines? They used to always say that in Star Trek, apparently. Computer, and then they would just talk, right? And then stuff would happen. Honestly, when Siri and then Alexa, okay, Google, everyone was like, oh my God, it's here. And then we were all like really, really disappointed. So if you think about it, this all kind of ties in, and I'll give you guys an analogy. So the Star Trek computer, it had three things. One, it could hear you anytime. It's always listening, right? So what we said today is that there's old school tools like Make and Zapier, and really basically any kind of workflow builder that can always listen. And you guys can sign up for those for free. Then the computer had the ability to understand what you meant. That was the big thing that was missing 4 years ago, right? It just didn't understand language like that, or my accent like that, right? Or 20 different languages. Now it can via LLMs. And the third thing is that it was connected to every system on the ship. So you could say, computer, lower the lights and move it to warp speed and raise the temperature 30 degrees. Okay. The lights is a system on the ship. Warp speed is like the engine on the ship. And the temperature is like the HVAC system on the ship. MCP handles the integrations piece now. And in this example, the effort is on the engine company and the HVAC company, right? And the lights company that helped build the spaceship. They have to worry about making their stuff MCP-able so that you could just talk to it. And it's here now. And it'll be so much easier this time next year. But we want our listeners to go crush it professionally. Go start solving problems for your company, or at least start the conversations for your company that know that the okay computer, every single salesperson that talks to a customer should go update an opportunity afterwards. So let's build something agentic that looks at the call transcript and gets that part done. Like, go be that person in the start of 2026. That's my advice on this topic.
Yeah. The reality is everybody's saying, oh, we got to do AI, but nobody knows what that means. And if you can actually come with a concrete solution to a real problem, take it back to the beginning of this podcast when we were saying the cool thing that a lot of products are doing now is they're solving really small but very annoying pain points with these normal workflows, these things that we have to do, right? But, being able to actually communicate with your fitness data, being able to talk to my computer and actually have it sound like me and be formatted properly. Like, these are really annoying things that are small in the grand scheme of things, but solving problems at your company or in your life with these tools is ultimately what will help you stand out, be recognized, and kind of progress in your career. If that's the reason that you're listening to this podcast, or just automate aspects of your life that take unnecessary amounts of time and take away from the things you'd rather spend your time doing. And that is now very possible with these tools. And one of the things that I have found for me personally on this, it's kind of a snowball effect in a positive way, where I started like we all start. I was like, oh, this ChatGPT thing is kind of cool. Let me ask it some questions. All right, I want to learn about this thing. This is better than Google. I don't know if that's real, but I'll figure that out later, And so we go through this thing where you start chatting with it and you realize, well, this is kind of cool. It knows a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. And then you connect your Gmail or your Google Drive to it. And you're like, oh, wow, I can actually ask about my documents and my emails. This is way better. Slack is a great example, because if you have ever tried to search for a message on Slack, if you use Slack, it's impossible. But if you actually use AI to search through things, suddenly you can find what you're looking for, which I don't know how they made the search in Slack so confusing and unhelpful, but they did. And then you're like, okay, you start to think about more possibilities for this. And so what I have found is the more that I use these AI tools and the more I learn about what they can do, the more it makes me want to use them and find new use cases and new problems I can solve. And that unlocks a whole new level of kind of mind-blowing moments where I sit there and say to myself, I can't believe it could actually do that. This is crazy. And then it makes me try the next thing. And so if you are early on in your AI usage career and you haven't used these tools a bunch, one of the big reasons that we wanted to create this podcast is because of that snowball effect. The more you use it, the more you benefit from it, the more you realize what it can do. You start using it more and more to offload these boring, mundane, aggravating aspects of your life. And it allows you to do even more powerful things with it, to unlock even more potential, to come up with all these new creative use cases to use this stuff for. And so I highly encourage you to really roll up your sleeves, try to build your own proactive agent, your own workflow here, because the more you do it, the more it'll unlock for you in terms of what you think and realize that these tools can do.
Well said. I don't know why there is this thing with AI. We could talk about it and other people can talk about it and people can rattle off 30, 40 killer examples. And people are like, yeah, okay, cool. Even if they believe you. But there's something about tangibly doing something yourself when it comes to AI that the second somebody does it, they're like, oh my God, that means I could do this, 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 and this. And we're like, yeah, we already told you that. But I don't know why, but it's experiential. And the second you do, this block that you might have had up that you didn't even realize was there just falls down. And then you are flooded with all of the inconveniences about your job or life that you think AI can solve. And I will say, the most accurate ad campaign I saw in all of 2025 was the commercials for Anthropic's Claude, which is like, now's the worst time in human history to be a problem. I have never solved more problems in my entire life than I have in 2025 using AI. Once my block fell down and I realized what kind of problems this stuff can solve, I just started getting more and more audacious and swerving into more departments' lanes and started thinking more outside of the box. And I don't recognize myself anymore, frankly. I was talking to my parents about this over the holidays. Like, they're like, what is your job again? Like, what are you doing these days? And I was like, I'm solving all kinds of problems, but none of them without these tools. I'm serious. None of these new skills that I've acquired, I have done without AI. But for the longest time in human history, you'd have to get trained to do something. Someone would have to teach you. AI can teach you. Now, you shouldn't do surgery if you're not a surgeon and you haven't been certified by the board and gone to school for like 10 years. But in theory, what happens when someone does all that? The human process has always been subject matter expert, meets you where you need to be met, and helps teach you, as long as you have like some of the pre-existing skills, how to get to a place where you can learn how to do a thing, like wire up a house, fix a computer, or do a surgery. And, you used to have to be like, oh, maybe I'll go back to school one day and do some web searching and figure out a place, and then have to go to a physical location and learn these skills from a person and pay money and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying do surgery, but like in theory, if you were stranded on an island when you had access to Wi-Fi and someone needed surgery, it could walk you through how to do it. I'm not saying it's going to go well, but it's a lot better than you being on an island by yourself. And so think about less serious things that aren't surgeries: coding, database stuff, wiring of systems, automations, anything that is rote or mundane, but has to be done all the time. But you didn't know how to do it in the past. You do now. You have infinite knowledge and wisdom in your pocket. Go solve as many problems as you can this year.
Yeah. It has allowed me to solve problems that experts in our departments haven't been able to solve, not because they didn't have the knowledge, but because, to Matt's point, I'm sitting here like, well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing anyways, so I might as well try to figure this out. And I'm going to feed it this data and I'm going to ask some questions and I'm going to see what happens. And realizing that you can have that mindset using these tools, I think, is incredibly empowering, because everybody knows the experience of there's a problem that you know is solvable, but you have to track somebody down to do it, or you have to wait for the next development cycle for something to happen, or you have to send 3 emails and then hope that you catch the person who has the ability to do the thing that you want. Now you can empower yourself to solve your own problems, or if you can't fully solve them, at least you can present your findings to your team or to somebody and say, hey, I could be wrong, but based on XYZ, I think that this could actually fix this issue that we're dealing with. And if you can actually come up with a solution to a problem that is non-obvious, that is challenging to solve, that really makes you stand out as somebody who is reliable. I think being a known problem solver and being reliable are two of those things that, regardless of which field you're in, and they've done studies on this, those are two of the traits that are most aligned with career success and like long-term trajectory, is being a go-to problem solver and being reliable. And those, you can be reliable as a character trait, and now you have the ability to be a go-to problem solver with some of these tools. And I want all of you to experience that moment where you type into the box, you connect a couple apps, you do something, and you go, whoa, now I realize what this can do, and now I have more ideas. It's like when you're a beginner in anything, you don't realize the possibilities of things that exist, like learning a new instrument. You don't realize the crazy stuff that you can do playing a guitar until you start playing guitar. And then you realize with these fundamental skills that unlocks you thinking about these other things that you could do. Using AI tools is much the same way. It's building a new skill. And the more that you do it, the more that you play around with this stuff, the more that you do the things that we talk about in this podcast, the more you will unlock for yourself in terms of what you realize is possible.
I love it. It's a great place for us to wrap it up. Please use it more. Use all of it more. And understand that like this is the key to whatever you want your future to be, right? Hey, computer, do this. That world is here. Is the early days, and 99% of people are turning their backs to it and just using LLMs strictly as like way better Google search. Not a bad application. I encourage it. I'm not trying to poo-poo that. But if you want to be next level, like these tools are just sitting there waiting for you to pick them up. So pick them up, everybody. Tell us how you're being successful. And when you do, come back and give us a subscription and give us a like. We would greatly appreciate that. We're going to quadruple down in the new year here on sharing as much content as possible. We will even entertain the idea once you reach a certain level of success of bringing on some guests. So maybe it'll be one of you. Maybe one of you will be the perfect person to explain how AI changed your life and your career, and we'll bring you on the pod.
Would love to do that. But seriously, like, subscribe, share it with one person you haven't shared it with if you think that this episode would resonate with them, or any of the other ones we've done for that matter, because we really do want to demystify this stuff, make it more approachable, and help empower you to change your life with technology. And on that note, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Type in the box.
Type in the box.